where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.com. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.com. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And it's actually, if you want to send us an email, it's .org. My fault. I need to straighten that out. The kids are at play here in the studio already. But welcome on a beautiful Monday. You can't walk when you have your headset on, CJ. It's very difficult to walk when your head is connected to a board.
It's a good thing I'm not chewing gum also, then we really be in trouble.
Thank God there's no hurricane around here. Could you imagine that?
Oh,
but in any event, hi, it's Tom Trento, Trento Vision here on the 29th of October, 3 o'clock, 3:04 in the afternoon. 4 minutes after 3 o'clock on the East Coast. Our friends out in California, more and more folks out there watching us because on our United West side, we have done quite a bit of work over the years fighting the Muslim jihadis in the state of California. And there are quite a few to fight in that state. And we've developed some tremendous relationships with people out there. Good team of activists. We say hello to you guys and your lunch drive time, 12 to 3 on the East Coast, 3 o'clock, 4 or 5 after 3 right now. At WNN 1470 in Boca Raton, Florida. For those of you listening on your internet, on iHeartRadio, or on the WNN website in some other state or country, Boca Raton is a fabulous place to come for a vacation this winter. You'll love it. Bring your checkbook. It's a little pricey down here. Those of us who work here don't live here. We have to commute in, but that's a whole nother story. But and when we commute in, we typically come to our beautiful studios at the Beasley Broadcasting Corporation on the 100th floor of this tower to squeaky chairs. So today we did two things. We brought our trusty can of WD-40 right here. It doesn't, I hope I don't mix it up with my little iced tea. But as you notice, this chair is not squeaking any longer.
It's a new chair.
It's a new chair. Office Depot, $69.99. You can buy one also. How long did it take, Mike, to assemble?
Sure, not long.
Not long, okay. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you can have a nice chair like this. But I may have to get a cushion, though, because...
Are you through complaining yet?
Oh, I may have to get a cushion. I don't know.
Are you sure you're not Jewish?
Yeah, no,
I know.
I'm not Jewish, I know. The Woody Allen... No, I don't complain too much
Woody
about
Allen
things.
in the studio.
The only thing I complain about is this administration, because as you know, last Friday, we had a very significant show, and the show dealt with the significant national security news of the moment. For those of you just tuning in, my name is Tom Trento on Trento Vision, and in another life, I run an organization called The United West, a counterterrorism educational organization dedicated to defending and protecting the Constitution of the United States of America. It's a pretty good document. We also, in our mission statement, are dedicated to the defeat, destruction, disabling of the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States of America and elsewhere. We think the Brotherhood is a terrorist organization that is in a pre-kinetic phase.
I think you need to explain to the audience what that means, Tom.
Yeah, you got a Google machine you can do, or a dictionary. Kinetic, not kinetic cut. Kinetic is I'll tell you a little later. Go look it up. Kinetic. They're in pre-kinetic phase, okay, and so it's a cultural battle right now that we fight, an ideological battle. We don't use guns and bombs and bullets. Hint, kinetic. We don't use all of that stuff, and so This show's dedicated to explaining these issues, addressing these issues from an educational point of view with an express purpose of taking a position of advocacy. You see, we got how many days left, CJ?
Till the election, or
Till the election.
was it 11?
8.
8. 8 days left. Mark's
8.
right on it.
He's wishing it were 11.
Yeah.
I know.
He wants to stretch it out even more.
Yikes.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for 4 years. Actually, we started in last summer, the summer of 2008, when when Senator Obama declared, whenever that was, 2007, we knew he was a bad guy. We started working back then and worked continuously. And hopefully in the next 8 days, the efforts by ourselves and many others around this great country will come to fruition. He will be defeated, and then the beginning of the turning around and returning to the principles of the United States Constitution come into play. And one other objective we have, or mission statement, is the defense of the nation of Israel. From a national security perspective, we have said many, many times that Israel's a unique piece of geography that is tactically and strategically located to enable the United States to have a defensive posture in an offensive environment. There are 330 million Muslims in that area, most of whom hate America, hate the West, hate Jews. And we have 7 million people that have committed themselves to building a prosperous, productive, and free country. It's interesting. We were in Israel a few months ago, and the Israeli Arabs can go basically wherever they want to in Israel, but the Israelis can't go into the Arab areas. It's against the law. So where's the apartheid there? Tell me about that. So here's what we do. We do this sort of work, approaching complex issues, making them a little more understandable. And we have some big ones over the past few weeks, and today, very big ones. And our desire is to make sure you vote intelligently in 8 days. That means you do not vote for President Obama. It's very simple. Man, again, we engage in a lot of debate and discussion, and we find that whenever you find an Obama supporter to defend whatever the position is, they're good for about 4 talking points, and then they get angry at you and start calling you names. There's very little analytical reason by those who have chosen to support President Obama. And the typical reason they support is not because they're looking to live a life of principle. They're looking to live a life of presence. Presents, presence. They want to receive presents from the government. That's what we're finding with many, many, many people on the left, just trying to figure out which
It's all about
person,
the entitlements.
which person's going to be the bigger Santa Claus, the Mitt Romney or Obama, and Obama will beat Mitt Romney any day being Santa Claus. So last week, Friday, we concluded by saying that this President Obama, has blood on his hands. And the evidence presented for that was the failure of the administration, including the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the Joint Chiefs, the Department of Defense, the CIA, that this administration as a whole has failed on critical issue of protecting Americans in the Libyan theater in Benghazi, the consulate area in particular. And over the weekend, our good friend Mozart prepared a little picture for us to illustrate what we're talking about. We're going to put that up right now for those of you watching on TrentoVision.tv. And if you're listening on the radio on WNN 1470, what the viewers are looking at right now, Mozart. Mort is his first name, and he does a lot of artwork, and he's been affectionately called Mozart. Mozart drew a picture of Uncle Sam, the classic traditional picture of Uncle Sam, the United States wants you picture. And it says, President Obama, you have blood on your hands. And the Barack Obama, you have blood on your hands. The you have blood on your hands is in blood red. And then there's 3 names underneath it. that this caricature is offering as evidence to the culpability, the failure professionally of President Obama as a commander-in-chief. And the three names are Little Rock, Fort Hood, and Benghazi. So what we decided to do, folks, is to assist our listening audience, those of you driving around or at home with your radios, and to assist our viewers out there to navigate through the issue of how this administration sacrifices soldiers. See, right now, as the world is getting increasingly more dangerous, the necessity of a superpower military and a strong defense is that much more critical. But ironically, this administration is taking us in a way that's antithetical or completely opposite to the way we should be going. And these three names, Little Rock, Fort Hood, Benghazi, illustrate the fatal flaw in the understanding of the threat doctrine of Islam. And if you don't understand the doctrines, folks, you simply cannot have public policy that enables Americans to live safely in this country or anywhere else in the world. And I ask you this, do you feel that you can go to any, as an American now, you can go to any country in the world? You know, can you go to any Muslim country and feel safe? Of course not. You hardly some of the European countries where there's strong Islamic influence. The pandering and appeasement to the Sharia-compliant Muslims has created a definitively more difficult and dangerous world. So for this week, we're speaking to all Americans, but in particular, we want to talk to you veterans. As you're going to go in 8 days and vote, 700,000 out of 1.6 million of you 4 years ago voted for President Obama. We're going to ask you to change that vote, and we're going to present 2 or 3 shows this week, 4 shows, dedicated to revealing to America the failure of the Obama administration on national security and military policy. We're going to start today with a little town in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. And if you're a follower or listener of Trento Vision, you know that we've done some work with our good friend, Dr. Charles Jacobs from Boston. He was on the show not too long ago. He's the producer of an absolutely must-see documentary, 68-minute documentary entitled Losing Our Sons. Well, today, for your edification and motivation, we have these 3 gentlemen with us. We have, and they'll be here in a little bit, Dr. Charles Jacobs, Melvin Bledsoe, and Darius Long, the 2 fathers of kids that were killed, one killed by a jihadi and the jihadi in jail. So, but the way we'll introduce this segment, this hour, is by playing a very short trailer to the movie Losing Our Sons. The viewers can see it, the listeners can hear the soundtrack. You'll get everything out of listening to the soundtrack. Then I'm going to bring our guests on, and we're going to discuss the connection from Little Rock to Fort Hood to Benghazi, and tying all of this to the administration. And then tomorrow we're bringing in a team of experts to discuss in detail the Benghazi situation. In our second hour today, we will have John Guandolo, former FBI agent, counterterrorism expert, talking about the Little Rock situation. And in our third hour, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. What, Mark? Lord willing and the creek don't rise, but the creek is rising. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. In our third hour, 5 to 6 on the East Coast, we will have Frank Gaffney and Steve Coughlin, 2 of our colleagues at Team B2, 2 national security experts. So sit down, relax. If you're driving on the road, stay driving for the next 3 hours, or get in your house real quickly, put on the radio. If you're watching this, get your computer there, get some milk and cookies, and let's be praying for everybody in the Northeast. It's going to be hit by what we know are very difficult weather conditions with Sandy. But right now, we're going to go and watch and listen to Losing Our Sons. Take a watch.
hang out at this Little Rock shopping center.
He killed one soldier
and he's been shot.
It was outside that did this.
Born Carlos Bledsoe, but converted to Islam and changed his name to Abdul Hakim Muhammad.
He got involved going to a mosque.
This country will not be the richest country on earth because it is the worst country on earth.
He was young and impressionable.
He spent 16 months in Yemen.
Way up in the mountains, he was being manipulated all along.
You're speaking because our country needs to hear the truth.
Tell the country what happened to my son.
You couldn't get the Secretary of Homeland Security to speak the word terror for the first 2.5 years she was in office.
They want to get tied up in some world of political correctness.
Attorney General that doesn't even think that the word terror is in the dictionary.
Because jihad is a holy struggle.
The Department of Defense is still not prepared to call the enemy what it is.
We're worried about stepping on our toes, and they're talking about stamping us out.
The media is engaged in self-censorship.
Major Nidal Hassan was able to openly praise Little Rock shootings. My faith in government is diminished.
Well, I think these anecdotes are interesting. I don't believe these are experts.
What you both have gone through is interesting, the word you used to describe it.
I have a holy heart for the family of the victim.
Mr. Bledsoe and his family are as much victims in this as we are.
This is not the son we raised.
You are dealing with Islamic justified.
This is Abdul Hakim.
I don't think it was murder.
All the world can hear it.
We will not be silent again.
The truth needs to be told.
As long as this country doesn't recognize what's going on, as long as they turn a blind eye to it, when it's just out there to see, I can't bury my son.
It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen to anyone.
Yeah, that was the 2-minute trailer for a must-see documentary, Losing Our Sons. And mark down, everybody listening and you viewers, LosingOurSons.com. Be sure to go there this evening or when the show's over, watch this must-see documentary. And for those of you just tuning in at 20 after the top of the hour here, I'm Tom Trento on Trento Vision. You're on WNN 1470, broadcasting out of Boca Raton, Florida, live and in color. The color part is we have a simulcast camera streaming around the world to TrentoVision.tv, and you can watch the show. We are dealing with national security issues, and today we have on 3 gentlemen who are on the forefront of a critical issue that in and of itself is important, but in the context of the failure of this administration, it's critically more important. So important, in fact, that Governor Huckabee on his Fox show over the weekend interviewed once again, I think this is the second or third time, both of the fathers, the dads, we'll introduce those shortly, both of them over the weekend. And the best way to get this going, and with me in the studio is CJ and Mark, those of you who know us, know what's going on, is to bring on Dr. Charles Jacobs, the driving force, the primary producer behind Losing Our Sons. Dr. Charles Jacobs, our good friend. Can you hear me?
I can, Tom.
Okay, great. If you can speak up a little bit, we're trying to overcome the limitations of our capabilities here. We're when we integrate TV with radio, you got to sometimes use a little more duct tape. So if all of you guys can speak up. Charles, tell us about what occurred on Mike Huckabee's show and put it in context for why what you have done with these gentlemen is so critically important right now.
Okay, so what's important here, and I think Darius Long said it beautifully on the Huckabee show, is that what happened in Little Rock set kind of a pattern that was revealed later on in Fort Hood, and even more so in Benghazi. And what happened? What happened was that an American student, Carlos Bledsoe, sent off by his family to learn how to better himself at Tennessee State University to get an education. He was converted to Islam, to radical Islam, and he was converted probably by the sermons that he heard in the mosques in Nashville, and the teachings of imams that are teaching, throughout our college system right now. We had one here at Northeastern University we just got rid of, I think it's the first time ever, by showing the public what he was teaching. Well, the people who were teaching where Carlos went to school were doing the same thing. America's horrible. We have to live by Islamic law, etc., etc., anti-Jewish, anti-Christian. So somehow, Carlos gets converted to radical Islam. He gets sent to Yemen, winds up in the hands of Al-Qaeda, comes back, tries to kill 2 rabbis, and finally shoots and murders an American Army recruiter, Andy Long, whose father's on the phone with us. And so what the administration has done at every level is, and he said, and Carlos said he did it for Allah. This was in his mind. In his mind, he did it for Islamic religious reasons. This was a jihad murder. So what the administration has done is they don't want to say that Al-Qaeda still lives and it haunts our own houses. And since they don't want to say that Islam is in any way problematic, they're treating this like it was, in their words, a drive-by shooting. That is, it was like a cocaine bust that went bad, a cocaine deal that went bad. And so, and as part of that strategy, they're withholding what naturally would have come to Andy Long is a Purple Heart. The natural outcome of a soldier being killed in an act of hostility toward America is a Purple Heart. So they're withholding the Purple Heart, and they're saying it was a drive-by shooting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Charles, let me ask you one question to set the stage for the audience here. I believe this happened on June 1, 2009, correct?
You got it.
It's very important, ladies and gentlemen, you watching and listening. You've got to look at the chronological timeline, because what we're going to do today, by going through Little Rock, going through Fort Hood into Benghazi, and in detail tomorrow, is show the continuity of failure, the rules of disengagement, if you will, of this administration, where they fail at an initial point in terms of understanding the motivation. Charles, any rookie cop, when they're investigating a crime, has to analyze what the motive was behind the criminal and then the context from which the criminal operated. Now, if you were a rookie cop and you had to go on the scene on June 1st, 2009, and you did your investigation, what conclusions would be reached about the context, the philosophical and methodological context of the shooter and the motivation of the shooter? What would the conclusions be if you evaluated honestly, without any political correction, the data and the intelligence and evidence in front of you?
Well, like you said, I mean, in any crime in the United States, they always look for motivation, right? Except here, they don't want to look for motivation. And in our film, we show administration officials just saying motivation's not that important. It's too complex to understand and has nothing to do with religion, or maybe if it did, So they're dancing around the motivation, but it was clear because Carlos himself said that what his motivation was, and in his confession, his written confession, he said what the motivation was. So the rookie cop has got to say next, my gosh, we had better figure out that so that this won't happen again. We had better take steps so that American children, students, young men and women, are not being turned into jihad murderers. We better go look and see where he learned this, who had his hands on him, where this happened in the United States and out of the United States. And that's exactly what they refuse to do, because this is all a political response instead of an intelligent response, instead of a pro-American response. This is a political response.
All right, and for our viewers and listeners, if it's very critically important to understand that this administration refuses to allow the facts to be understood as they are. The facts have to be modified, manipulated, or avoided in terms of maintaining the narrative of the storyline of this administration, We are on top of terrorism. We've defeated terrorism. Al-Qaeda's on the run. This occurred June 1st, 2009. Benghazi occurred September 11th, 2012, over 3 years. Melvin Bledsoe, welcome to the show. This is Tom Trento, sir, and with me is CJ and Mark. You've met all of us a couple of weeks ago when you were here in town. Our heart goes out for your very difficult situation. We pray for you and your wife and your son in the situation that you're in. What are your thoughts as you are a participant in a historic event, and now you're watching this administration do very much the same procedure to what happened in analyzing your situation now in this situation in Libya? What are your thoughts, Melvin?
Well, thank you for having me on today. I have a lot of thoughts about this whole matter, as I have been concentrating on this for the last 3 years. I feel that the federal government, American government, has been ignoring this situation all along. They know exactly what happened with my son's case. They use him as a bait, and they try to cover everything up by allowing the state of Arkansas to trial this case. So all the evidence, all the information will be suppressed, and the state didn't have access to that information because they did not treat it, this case, as what it was. They treated it as a drive-by, and this whole matter was a religious influence by manipulation of the radical Islamic people who are in our country to overthrow our government. And that's my feeling about what happened. I think that when the truth come out, eventually, I think it will. And I think that also the American government needs to stand up now and say that we must do something after yet, again, Benghazi has happened. And more people are now trying to understand what's been going on in this country for the last 3 years.
All right, Darius, we also met you a couple of weeks ago when you were in town, and we put together a show about your very powerful documentary. You lost your son, Andy, June 1, 2009. You two have been on the forefront of this battle, trying to awaken Americans. Your thoughts, please, for our audience here in South Florida and really all over the world.
Really, you got to look at the timing of when this thing started. Happened on June 1st. On the 4th of June, the president made his Cairo speech. The same thing, you kind of look at, if you look at the political aspects of it, this thing was inconvenient for the Cairo speech. There was silence up until June 2nd. On the 2nd of June, he introduces his prospective Secretary of the Army, and no mention is made on an attack on a recruiting center the day before. On the 3rd of June, a statement supposedly comes out, but this statement is only put out to Arkansas outlets. It's not put out anywhere else. Now, this statement is attributed to the president, but you will not find it on the White House website. Everything Obama says goes on that White House website, with the exception of this. On the 4th of June, what comes out is the president goes over there and says, I want to hold my hand out to you and I want to be your friend. What he should have said is, I want to hold my hand out to you. However, if you kill Americans, we're not going to put up with that. That did not occur. So what you see is, if in and of itself, if that was the Little Rock could have been an exception had they have stepped down on it, but they didn't do that. Arkansas had to have charges in by the 60 days. The federal government, we talked to them on the 1st of September of 2009, and they said, good, we can do this because it doesn't abbreviate our investigation. It turns out there are 3 FBI field officers involved in investigating this guy. He was caught in Yemen. He was deported from Yemen back to the United States at the request of the U.S. government. There is a New York Times, a Washington Times article that says the government knew he was dangerously radicalized before he came back. However, this is not in the federal justice system. The judge in charge of the case in Little Rock disallowed anything that had to do with federal evidence. The Arkansas court had to work on what happened at 10/19. They couldn't include what had happened in Nashville with the firebombing a rabbi's house. They couldn't include what happened with the Little Rock rabbi before, because the FBI investigated. So what it became is just 1 minute in front of a Little Rock recruiting office. And it disavowed 14 months in Yemen, it disavowed what he was caught with in Yemen, and it disavowed everything else. Now what you got is just crickets, then you have spin, then you have outright obfuscation. And if you look at that and you lay that template on Fort Hood, the same thing. It becomes, this is a disgruntled Army officer. He murders his fellow friends instead of saying, yeah, he was hooked up with Anwar al-Awlaki. And then it turns in, the obfuscation is, it becomes just drive-by violence. And then you overlay that on top. That showed a trend, and you overlay that on top of Benghazi. What you see is, this is all of a result of a film. That is the obfuscation. And then he's in another pickle here because he's going up for election. So here you have 2 weeks of everybody in power in D.C. saying it's because of a movie, when, as facts come out, that is just a bold-faced wrong.
Well, ladies and gentlemen...
That proved a pattern. That shows that you got 3 instances where they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And the blood bill there is 4 Americans in Benghazi, 14 if you include the unborn baby dead in Fort Hood, 1 dead in Little Rock, 32 wounded in Fort Hood, 1 wounded in Little Rock, and I don't think they've even come out with how many have been hurt in Benghazi. So this is ridiculous on its face.
No, again, for our audience, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to an amazing analysis that establishes a de facto template of the way this administration is handling terrorist activity, not only in the homeland, but even abroad now. And you just heard Darius Long, whose son Andy was killed by Melvin Bledsoe's son Carlos, and the 2 dads are on the phone. And as the world sometimes works properly, these 2 gentlemen, these 2 fathers, one of whom lost a son to the other father's son, have joined together to travel around to make this movie that Dr. Charles Jacobs, who is also on the line, produced, and awaken Americans to many issues. But right now, the most critical with 8 days, ladies and gentlemen, is the failure on a national security basis of this administration simply to not deal with the facts so that this president can get reelected. CJ, you had an observation about the hurricane and President Obama right now, Sandy?
Oh, right. No, I was reading it on one of the news sites, and somebody made the comment because the president broke into the Sunday talk shows to give a national security update about the storm. So the punchline is, if you need a reminder to buy bottled water and tape the windows before a hurricane, Obama is your man. If you're running a machine gun, soon to be covered in your own blood, on the roof of a building under fire in Libya at 3 a.m., if you've called 3 times over a period of almost 7 hours for air cover that is within a couple of hours away, or as we might learn in the armed drone directly above, well, you're on your own. The president will get back to you.
Yeah,
and that pretty much sums it up right there.
Mark, you had a thought?
Yeah. I think what Darius was talking about, what you were talking about, Tom, it's the pattern. It's the pattern that keeps, recurring. The denial, the obfuscation. I can never say that word. The cover-up, the misleading, everything that goes around. It was the same thing that happened in Little Rock. It's the same thing that happened in Fort Hood. It's the same exact pattern that happened in Benghazi. I mean, that was a brilliant observation by you, Darius.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to speak to Charles Jacobs, Darius Long, or Melvin Bledsoe, and if you were watching the Mike Huckabee show over the weekend, these gentlemen were interviewed once again by Governor Huckabee. Give us a call at 888-565-1470. You're listening to Tom Trento on Trento Vision, and it's about 37 after the hour on the 29th of October. Beautiful day here in sunny South Florida. But this issue that we're discussing, the failure